Hi, everybody. It's Book of Catherine, and welcome to podcast number 311, Tasmanian the cat, who he has passed on. He is no longer with us. So on Friday, I just want to tell you guys, I have had trouble writing about it. The only ways I can seem to be able to write about Tasmanian the cat, who has been with us since the beginning of Book of Catherine, the only way I can seem to write about him is to put him into the Prophet's Journal universe. I can't seem to do a montage. I've tried my best here, but I can't go through my favorite memories just yet. It's too fresh. It came on all of a sudden. It was a surprise. So I just want to kind of go through it with you and just let you all know that it's real, that it's not a rumor, and go through what happened with Tasmanian the cat. And so for those of you who don't know, my husband and I were very, very active and avid travelers. We used to travel around the world, and for work, I was traveling 2,200 miles a week on the road. I was very, very active. I was a speaker and a writer and a dancer. And so the writing I didn't really focus on the writing until I started to lose my mobility. And then one day, my neurologist said that I needed a handicap placard permanently and suggested that I get an in-home companion animal because my lifestyle was changing too drastically. He said, you were out on the road. You never spent time in the home. I mean, Nick and I didn't have pets at all because we were just constantly on the road. And so we were like, noted, we should probably get a companion animal. And I started to become aware of how often I was home alone. But it wasn't until we moved to the East Coast and had our own home that we were able to actually get any in-home companion animals. And that's because in California, if you rent, they're not going to let you. I don't remember ever seeing a lease that allowed pets, not even with a deposit. So, because I don't know if you guys have seen what rentals happen to rent. I don't blame them. What happened to rentals in California when we lived there. So anyway, when we got our own home, we were like, well, we can do that now. And I was much more isolated here. We didn't have any family in the area. And so, and we also lived in a much more rural community. So, quite far even from a grocery store. So for us, getting an animal was a good idea, companion animal, and we ended up with 3. We ended up with Lila cat, Tiberius the cat, and Tasmanian the cat, who is the youngest. They're all related, and we got them all at the same time within, I think, 3 months of getting the house back in 2014. And so they ended up being way more important than I thought. They really pushed me to move when the paralysis came over. We didn't have a diagnosis at the time. We didn't have a diagnosis. We didn't know what was wrong. And had we known, we would have, the Lord told us to get them. I can see why now. Paralysis is one of the neurological symptoms, and paralysis was really starting to set in, and the cats really prevented that. They really pushed me to be active and move and get out of bed when when the paralysis didn't want to let me do that. And I think it really delayed the FND from really taking over. If it had taken over earlier, before we were anywhere near getting a diagnosis, it was years before we got a diagnosis. And so the cats did a lot of things for me anyway. But Tasmanian the cat was the baby of the family, and he was the runt of the litter, and he clung to me. He just clung on to me and stayed with me. And so therefore, when Nick would be asleep or the other cats would be asleep and I would be up awake from the pain, Tasmanian, who I have up on the screen here, he's the one that would sit right next to me and just want pets all night. And so I always had someone there through the pain, through the suffering, when I did the physical activity that they were asking me to do, through the pain. Like you see the drawing, he'd always do my research. He was the one that liked to sit on my research. If I opened up books and did research with Book of Catherine, he was there. He would watch movies. He loved watching movies. He loved Ocean's 11. He was so into it. He would sometimes block the screen. From even a kitten, he was doing that. He was just always glued to the screen, just loved the movies and loved like, I don't know. So he was just a big part of my life and a big part of my recovery as well. He was the one when the snows came, he would run out into the snow, and he's the reason we got a leash in the first place for the cats, and the reason the cats go out. I don't recommend taking your cats out. Our cats are highly trained. They have leashes. They have this whole thing. They know boundaries. Most cats, if you open the door and let them out, then they won't come back again, or they'll get eaten. My cats have a whole regimen. We had a whole bunch of our friends work on it. So, but I didn't even think of doing that until Tasmanian kept wanting to run out in the snow. Even as a kitten, he wanted to go out in the snow and didn't seem to be bothered by it. And so he was the healthiest of the cats. All the cats, when they were neutered and spayed, that's his pink paw. I just love his pink paws. All the cats, when they were neutered and spayed, it knocked them out for a couple days and they needed meds. Tasmanian didn't. He the moment he got home, he ran off as though nothing had happened to him. So he's just crazy. He's just seemed impervious to pain. And so, he just was just a large part of my life. He was he's just mama's boy. Anyway, so it's almost as if I'm taking it extremely rough because we lost him on Friday and it was not expected. All of a sudden over the holidays, I noticed a change in his behavior. He used to constantly want food and eat up whatever food came around and ate more than his fair share of food. And then he didn't seem to want the type of food that we gave him. We had to keep changing the food for him to eat it. And then in January, we noticed later into January, we noticed he started to throw up the food, and that we weren't ready for that. We were like, what the hell is that? And so that's when we called the vet. And he was losing weight. In the last week, he started losing a lot of weight. And we couldn't get him in unfortunately, we called on Monday and we couldn't get him in until Friday. And so I was watching him deteriorate over the week, but I thought it was a stomach bug. I thought maybe because he loved to eat, his fur still looked great. He's still following me around the house, still able to jump taller than the other cats, still able to jump up on the bed. The other cats don't jump up. The bed got higher for my wedding anniversary. Nick made up the new bed that we have, and it's much higher. And Tasmanian was up and down on that bed all the time, sleeping next to me at night. And then in later January, these last 2 weeks, I was like, you're getting bony. This is weird. I'm not used to you being bony. And he's older in age. He turned 10 last summer. But anyway, long story short is we brought him in. We thought he was just going to need medication. And the vet didn't seem all that concerned. But then they had trouble actually. Anyway, long story short is they were like, well, what do you think? Do you want to get x-rays? And I was like, I think we should get x-rays. If you don't know what's wrong with him, if you're not seeing what's wrong with him, I say we get x-rays. If the blood work isn't telling you what's wrong with him, they're like, he might have infection or he might just have this. Remarkably, so much of when they showed us the blood work, the majority of it was in the regular, and the stuff that was elevated wasn't all that elevated. There's only one marker that was super elevated out of all the 50 or 175 different markers they were looking at. And so the vet actually didn't seem to know what it would be until they did the x-ray. And then the vet was like, oh, it's not good news. And all they did was show us what a side view should be of a normal cat, and then what Tasmanian's x-ray looked like. And I was like, okay, that's that. So yeah, so they weren't able to say why the x-ray looked like that. They said it could be, they started listing off all these things, none of which I recognized. But I remember when she started to talk about it, I said, look, she showed us the x-rays, and then I said, look, can we just kind of skip to the end for me? Do you mind if we skip to the end for me and just tell me, is this terminal? Are we talking about putting him down? And she's like, yes, anything we could do more tests, but no matter what it turns out to be, the test, we can find out exactly what it is. But it doesn't matter. All the prognoses are terminal, which means you could take him home. She's like, he's stable. Clearly, you caught it at the beginning, which, that made Nick and I feel better that we were at the beginning, because they weren't expecting it. They were like, okay, it looked like something had just burst or something. I don't know. It could be so many different things, apparently. And I didn't really care. I didn't care what the fuck it could be. I just took one look at that x-ray and was like, I want my cat in comfort. And she said that it wasn't that he was not in comfort. It seemed like what was causing him discomfort was not able to keep water down as easily. He didn't seem to be able to keep as much water as he should have. I asked them to hydrate him, and then he definitely picked up. And so he was definitely at the beginning of it. He was definitely at the beginning with whatever it was, which I'm very glad for. But I've even going through my pictures today, and I'm like, okay, we really were at the beginning. Like, it really did happen very, very fast. And I'm very glad that we didn't wait. It's very tricky because they're like, he looks so good. The vet kept saying he's so stable. I mean, he's looking so good. I mean, he was hopping up onto my shoulder. He was hopping up and down. He was jumping into their arms. And by the end, when I took the video of his last video, which I posted on Twitter, he had been there. We'd been there for 4 hours by then. Like, just a lot of it was waiting. They just didn't know what the heck until they did the x-rays. And then they're like, oh, so he was just tired by then. But he was happy to have treats or whatever. But by then he was so comfortable that he was just sitting on the vet table. And he thank God, he really, really liked the vets. I've never seen him like that before. He didn't hiss. He hissed outside when he saw like other pets, but when he got into the vestibule, like went into the little meeting area, and like the assistant came out and the vet came out, he was actually pretty great with them, especially the assistant. And he let her hold him and everything. It was pretty remarkable, which I was like, praise the Lord for that I've never seen any of my cats take to anyone, whether it's a groomer, whether it's a vet, they just really, really don't take it. They hide when anyone comes for, when I had in-home nurses and nursing care, they just disappear. And not like Tasmanian was like in their arms, just enjoying it. And I was like, okay, this is strange behavior. So I was happy that he was comfortable that way. So anyway, I just want to let you know that anyway, so we took one look and they said, he's so stable. He's looking so good. His coat is so good. Like, you're so early in it. All of his blood work looks like this. You can definitely take him home for a few days to say goodbye. But my husband and I, they gave us time anyway to discuss it, but we both told them at the same time, we were like, no, we don't want to take him home, because we had agreed when we first got them that we wouldn't be that kind of owner that was like, because we saw it in California a lot. A lot of our friends did that, like kept their dogs and cats on pain meds, and we would watch them, and then some of them didn't keep up on the pain meds. And maybe it's because I'm on so much medication, and I know like what happens, like if you skip a dose of pain medication. Maybe just because I'm so sick, I was like, nope, no way. And so, but both of us were just prepared for that. Like when we got the cats, I was like, we should be prepared, like in 10 years, if it's time, like we should be prepared for something to lose them, because we didn't have kids and we didn't have pets. And so when we got them, we loved them so much. We took to them so quickly that I was like, I have to kind of prepare myself to lose. But I thought it would be Lila. Lila's the frail one. She's the one that has like the really frail bones. She's the girl. She's always seemed to be the one that if the little cold season came around, she was the one that got it. She was the one on asthma medication for a while. We learned not to do wood fire grills, stoves anymore. And then it seemed to go. She doesn't seem to have those problems anymore. She had it for a little while where she had to get shots, and it's been a long time now. She's been so much better for years now. But for a while though, she's the only one that's ever needed meds. And Tiberius was the second one who needed meds. Tasmanian never went on medication ever. Like the cat never needed help. He never, so he's the last one I was expecting. He's the youngest. He's the most active. If you watch my early videos of Book of Catherine, he's the one that you'd hear thumping against the walls, because he would use the walls as he'd make rainbow arcs over them. He'd run up the walls literally in a large arc. He just loved bouncing off the walls literally, and you could actually hear it on video. He was so active, and you just had to be on the watch for him all the time. And then as he got older, he just got more and more close. He used to love hamming up for the camera, and he loved being on Book of Catherine. And so that was just, I don't know, he's a huge part of my life. And it's like I got healthy enough to start baking again and driving again, like very slowly moving into driving. I'm practicing a lot up here on top of our land. I'm starting to like practice a few times a week, just making sure like the functionality is there. I want to trust myself again. I can do it. Like I've definitely done it when I'm with my husband in the car. I've got the functionality to do it. It's more trusting myself because it's been so long. It's just been so long that I want to trust myself again. Even though we live in an area with like no cars. But I'm like, I'm trying to slowly ease myself into society. For example, like I went on just a short drive and I was sore afterwards. Like those muscles were not the muscles that it takes to drive weren't used to moving. And so the baking's helping me get those muscles more adjusted, and the spine just needs to get adjusted and stuff like that. I'm trying to ease myself into a pain-free, or as least painful as possible, ride in the car when I drive. But I mean, the fact that I'm getting into a car, turning it on by myself, and like driving it around like twice a week, even on the land, that's a big change. Tasmanians grown up without me going out of the house at all. Like they're very, very used to me being not, it was a big change for them for me to move up on the bed. For a long time, I was on the ground. I just couldn't get myself into a bed. I had to sleep on the floor. I was just on the floor all the time. And so then I moved up into the bed, and then we finally moved me upstairs when I could do stairs again, and that freaked them out. So when I left the house, I remember recording about it and being like, they're not used to me leaving the house at all. But like now I'm going out, like I'm able to get outside and walk a bit, and it's even though it's winter. Um, and now I'm baking, and I'm able to bake almost every day, like maybe every other day consistently, bake something, or at least run the dishwasher. And that's a big deal. Like it took me years to be able to, I mean, the dishwasher to me is such a big deal because it's bending up and down, and that's just, I couldn't stand up for the longest time. Anyway, so I'm so much more functional, and it's almost like Tasmanian the cat came right when I was losing all of my function and made sure I survived, because my neurological disorder kills. It most often kills because it's so hard to diagnose. You have to do a cognitive function test for it to be revealed that it's FND. Like and most people don't notice it because you're not usually tested for a cognitive function test unless you get hit in the head in the NFL. Like that's when they give you one of those things. Like, can you stand on one foot, and can you remember what you ate last night for dinner? Things like that. Memories of, it's just a very specific type. And a lot of us don't notice how much function we're losing unless we're young. Then we start to really notice it. But when we get older, it hits, or when we're kids and we're younger, I don't know. It's just a very, very deadly disorder. And I'm very, very, very blessed. I came really close a few times and to dying. And Taz, I'm not scared of that anymore. Like for me, my fears are things like having, episodes when I'm home alone or not getting the food. Like those are my fears. My fears are no longer like not dying. I'm able to reach my medicine when I need to. I used to not be able to do that. Now I know that if an episode hits, it will end, and I know how long they will take, whereas before we didn't know, and I used to like black out after an episode. And so those are big, big, giant leaps. I'm not tremoring 24/7. I used to be nonstop tremor. And it's almost like he was here in my life until, he still slept with me next to me on the bed. Like he was still right there. Like Nick's pillow was on my left side and Tasmanian was on my right side. And Nick's not home every night and Tasmanian's home every night. And so like last night was my first night, like without him, and the other two cats don't sleep on the bed. They're underneath the bed and they don't really follow me everywhere in the house, and they're pretty quiet. Tasmanian's the big talker. He's constantly following me and talking to me. Anyway, I don't know if any of you guys care about this, but I don't know if he's been in my world this much, and Book of Catherine is about my world. So I just know that there's a lot of people who love Tasmanian out there. And so I just want to let you know that he did pass away. Like on Friday, we just told them immediately. We were like, no, let him go now. We do unto others as you would have done to yourself. I mean, it took one look at that x-ray and I was like, no, I was just like, I don't want him to suffer at all. And she's like, well, he's only beginning and we can give him it. I was like, no, I would never. We brought him in for a reason. Like, he was having trouble. I'd have to sit with him. If I sat with him, he ate. And that just weirded me out. That's why I thought maybe it's psychological, because Nick was gone so often that maybe he was stress eating, like he was losing his appetite because Nick was gone. He's had a big change in schedule. He's not home nearly as much anymore. And so I was just like, is it a stress thing? Is it a seasonal thing? But then it just really, I'm glad we brought him in. I'm glad we got there when it was early, but I wasn't going to delay it. I mean, there was nothing they could do to make that x-ray better. I mean, they'd already poked him enough to get the blood work done, and to just for, I just didn't want him poked any more than he had to be. And so we'll get his ashes this coming week, and then I can put them on the land. And so, like, just because we have the land that we have, it's 3 acres of land and we have the overlook. So I think that's the last thing he did before we left, is he was sitting on top of the stairs watching the snow come down. It was a beautiful, beautiful snowstorm that day. And he was just sitting high up on the steps, just watching all the snow fall down, watching the land, watching all of it. He'd been watching the turkeys on our land. He'd been watching the little birdies up on the winter birdies come. And so that's, where I'll spread the ashes. So, but I've definitely incorporated, I don't know how much more I can write about it. I've been baking like crazy just to try and ignore the fact that, the house is so empty and quiet without him. So, like, I'm just, the other 2 cats, you'd never know they were here. They're so quiet and they're so reserved. They're kind of a pair. They're like mates, Lila and Tiberius. They're kind of like married. You've seen their Lick Fest videos. And so they're just off having their own thing. Tasmanian is the one that would follow me around and we'd do lunch together. He'd let me know if it was time to go to bed. If it was past 8 p.m., he'd like come and be like, meow, 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 and let me know, go upstairs. Or if I missed a round of meds, he would come and let me know, like, meow, meow. And I'd be like, oh, right, I need to do my meds. I'd be like, thank you, Tasmanian. Like, he was really, really aware of like my meds and everything like that. He was really good about alerting me. He's just an amazing cat that way. And so I don't know. So it's just a big shift and loss. And I know that loss is just a part of life. Like, I know that. But, and maybe I'll get over it quicker because of, like, I remember Nick being like, we've seen worse, we've experienced worse. And I was like, really? But Nick's not home all that often. Or maybe it's just too new. I mean, we really weren't expecting that. We were expecting just to get some medicine and go. We were totally shocked and we weren't ready for that. So I'm still in shock. Like, I would have said something. Like, if I had thought that was a possibility at all, I would have said something on Twitter. Like, I didn't. I had it like the first thing I said anything. Like, I remember going into the vet clinic and being like, oh, I should take a picture and let everybody know that we're here. And then they called us in before we could even do that. And then all of a sudden, like, it just whirlwind, like, picked up like really very quickly. And then we left and I was just like, what do I say now? Like, he was here, then he wasn't. And it just took me forever. It took me until late that night, like after all the crying, to finally be like, by the way, he's not here anymore. And I just felt awful doing that. And then I was like, well, I'll write more, I'll do video or something, or I'll do a collage. And I can't do it. I can't bring myself to like go find all the pictures and all my favorite moments and to do the Arms of the Angel or all the sorts of different songs, or How Do You Say Goodbye, all these songs. I can't seem to get myself there to do it. So the best I could do was write about him on Prophet's Journal. So I wrote a nice long, like, 36 tweet megathread on Prophet's Journal about him and pinned it. And that's the best I can do. But otherwise, I just wanted to let you guys know, if you're hearing rumors or if you're worried or if you're a fan of his, I'm just catching you up and letting you know, like, I don't know. That's just where things are at. So just life change, just reality. And I guess I was just more prepared for the other cats who have been on meds before and who are the more lazy and less active and less jumpy. I mean, he just, I don't know. It was weird going to bed. Nick stayed home that night and he was in bed with me and we were both kind of weirded out because normally after Nick and I get into bed, Taz jumps into the bed and walks over both of our heads to his spot and sits down. And we're both like, what the fuck, Taz? What the, ow, 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 ow. It was weird because we were both expecting it. Like, it's a very, like, 30 seconds after our heads hit the pillow, he comes over and walks over. And it was really weird feeling that 30 seconds going by and not having him do that. It was just like, okay, this is really creepy. So Anyway, so that's where things are at, and I'm just going to be weepy for a while, and when I talk about this, I'm going to try and move on. I need to do some other podcasts that the Lord asked me to do, and I apologize if I sound like I'm totally distanced, but I don't know, that's if I've been trained on anything in the last 10 years of this illness, it's to how to just kind of dissociate from any kind of painful thing. So I kind of just have been spending my weekend doing that. And then I was like, I really should let you guys know. I really should like make you guys aware. And so I'm just, you guys are more his family than so many. I mean, you guys have shared, I don't know, you're Tasmanian. I always considered you Tasmanians family because I'm sharing things with you. Nick's not able to be on my Twitter account. My friends are not able to, my friends talk to me. They see my Twitter as something like my friends who, you know what I mean? Like the ones who are on the phone with me when I'm in the hospital, the doctor's office, the ones who are on the phone with us in the vet, like that small circle that we have whatever. So, they're hearing Tasmanian on the phone or whatever, but there's this whole other side. I've been learning. I spent some time with Nick for our anniversary, and he started asking me some questions and over Christmas, and because I was healthy enough, I was like, I'm healthy enough to do these things. And he just wasn't aware of it. He hasn't been home enough, and he wasn't aware that we were able to like go do something. And so we went out for coffee once, and we went out to dinner once. And he was asking me questions, and I was just like, how do you, right, you don't know this stuff. Like, you guys are so much more aware in some ways of my life, of Tasmanian and Tiberius and Lila. You guys see so much more, because I have kept Book of Catherine like a journal. I have kept, I've always kind of done it in a journal style. And I don't know. So it's just been it's kind of, I don't know. I just feel like I'm letting my family, gosh, I haven't even thought about telling anyone on. So, yeah. So anyway, so then I'm realizing all the people I haven't told yet. And I'm like, oh, I guess that illustrates how I think of you as his family. You guys are the ones that have walked the last, since 2017 have walked this path with us, and especially Tasmanian, who loves to sit on my research as I was researching everything, and who, I was telling Nick, I was kind of laughing about it because there was like one video that I did where the Lord said to tape this, one of the pet rubs that I did for Tasmanian, where he just wants to be rubbed for like 5 or 7 minutes straight. And then all of a sudden he's like, I'm done. And he goes, meow. And then he's like, no more touching. And I'm like, okay. And I finally recorded an entire one of those where all I'm doing is petting Taz, like for the whole time. And I was like, this kind of feels ridiculous. I don't feel like anyone needs to see that or wants to see that. And then like when they were taking Taz, I was like, well, I don't think that was so stupid anymore. Like, I'm really glad that I filmed that now. So it's just, I'm glad that I guess now that I think about it, isn't that the whole thing that they say, like, if you're on YouTube, you live on? Like, most people are going to never know that he passed on because he still lives on YouTube. Like, his videos are still out there. He'll still be out there. He's on TikTok, and I'm sure I'll find more videos or whatever and try and post them. But it's hard with things like social media for anything to die. So, but that's where things are at. So, yeah. So anyway, so I just want to catch you up, and I'm going to try and move on, and with the grieving process or whatever, but I just want to let you know. And so if you're like, where the hell did he go? That's what happened. So anyway, I love you guys so much. That's podcast 311. I hope it wasn't, I don't know. Anyway, I'm sorry to cry on you guys, but I love you so much, and I will see you on the next one. Mwah. Bye.